behind that gray door, that gray high bay door, there is a clean room. During the Apollo program, this is where the Apollo capsule was tested and checked out. Today, this is where the Orion capsule is being built and checked out. So a lot of important work going on behind that big gray door. Over here on the left side, this low gray building, during the Apollo program, this was a training facility. There were simulators in here, and our Apollo astronauts trained for their lunar missions. Today, this is an engineering lab being used by a private company called SwampWorks. They are building robotics for future during the shuttle program. This was our parachute refurbishment facility. Remember, with the shuttle, after about 2 minutes after launch, the 2 solid rocket boosters would jettison and they would parachute back down to the ocean because we reused those solid rocket boosters. Well, the parachutes came to this building. They were washed here, refurbished, and reused for future missions. Take anything up in the shuttle, supplies, equipment, materials, all of that was packed in canisters. Well, we brought the canisters out here, and they were rotated in this building from the horizontal up to the vertical position. So with NASA has partnered with our local power company to help generate green energy for use here at the Kennedy Space Center. Now, you can't really see it from here, but beyond those trees, there's a much larger 10 megawatt solar farm. Now, power from that farm could power up to 1,000 homes. But of course, we don't use that energy for powering homes. Again, we use to handle the new space launch system. So as we drive by this, there are 2 driver's cabs. You can see one of them, they're basically cubes with glass all around them. So there's one over on the left, there's another one on this side, but up in the front, kind of diagonally across. So if a driver needed to change direction, he'd get out of one driver cab, walk along the walkway where you see that yellow railing, over to the other driver cab, and basically go the opposite direction. No U-turns in this vehicle, no K-turns. You see those treads, like tank treads? Each of those individual metal plates weighs 2,000 pounds. And water rockets horizontally. And they're going to do that in this warehouse that you see coming up on the left. They'll assemble the rocket horizontally, take it up to the launch pad, up to the top of the launch pad on a rail system that you'll see here in just a second. You can see those rails now, and on the top you'll see a horizontal crane, a gray crane. The rocket will be on top of that crane, and when it gets up to the top of that launch pad, it will erect, going up from the horizontal up to the vertical. Now, the launch towers you see there, that launch pad is still in its original shuttle configuration. It won't be that way much longer. SpaceX is going to use the tall part of that tower. They're going to refurbish it, maybe put some paneling on the outside, and then use it for their launches. But the lower part of that tower, the retractable arm, they don't need that, so they've said that eventually they're going to tear that down. Now that arm was used when the shuttles would come out here. They would often come out up to a month before their launch. And that retractable arm would just move right around and right up against the shuttle and protect it from the elements. Now if you notice that big white water tower over there, that served a very important function. During the shuttle program, the engineers were so concerned that the sound vibrations from the launch, the acoustics, would be so loud that they might damage the tiles on the shuttle. So they used that water as sound suppression. 16 seconds prior to launch, all 400,000 gallons of that water would empty out of that tank, get sprayed across. Liquid hydrogen is their fuel. They use refined kerosene. So this will probably just be used as a backup. Now in just a second, we're going to stop the bus. Take your seat once again. And again, we can only stay here for just a few seconds.
How far away were they cleared?
Yeah, the question is, during a launch, how close could people be? The engineers determined that the minimum safe distance for humans was 3 miles. This would be way too close. There were no... Now those are scheduled to be refurbished and reused for the Space Launch System, which will be launching from
for the duration of our presentation. If you must leave during the presentation, please exit through the doors on your right. Thank you.
Nice try.
In front of you are the 10 flights that we flew aboard the big Saturn V moon rocket to do the test flights and the actual moon landings, 10 times. But behind you, hanging from the ceiling, was launched from across the river, from Cape Canaveral. Back in those days, just to confuse you, back in those days, it was called Cape Kennedy. There hasn't been Cape Kennedy in over 42 years. Big first stage. How did it get here? It didn't go by plane, train, or automobile. It came by a big ocean-going barge. So one of the reasons why they chose Merritt Island to launch the big moon rockets, you needed access to the ocean. In this case, it was Port Canaveral, where the cruise ships go in and out today. So you can see inside the rocket. So besides the big engines, it's got big fuel tanks. And that first stage on your left, remember, you only use it for the first 2.5 minutes. Well, at liftoff, this thing weighed over 6 million pounds. In 2.5 minutes, it lost 90% of its weight. Why? Because the fuel for that first stage was kerosene. The upper 2 stages to your right front, they used a much lighter but more powerful liquid hydrogen. More bounce for the ounce. Getting back to recover from this whole life. Something is missing above my head. It's that big ring that you saw fall away during the video. That big ring, called the interstage, connected the first stage with the second stage. Where's this big ring at? Nobody knows. On top, look to the left, top of the actual rocket. But look beyond it, to the, underneath it, you see a light green color. That's the top of the liquid oxygen tank. So in order to that the mission of landing a man on the moon was more important than the individual names of the astronauts. So the patch actually represents the 400,000 men and women in 6 places where America landed on the moon between July of 1969 and December of 1972. So 6 moon landings, 12 humans have walked on the moon. So when you see that big full moon tomorrow night, no matter where you live, real lunar module. If we did not cancel the last 3 moon landings, that would be on the moon. Matter of fact, if we didn't cancel the last 3 moon landings, we wouldn't be here because there would not be no rocket to be put on display. So the lunar module was built by the Grumman Corporation up in Long Island, New York. It's actually composed of 2 sections. The bottom part, where you see the gold in the legs, was called the descent stage. And so you see the big engine bell, that's what they would use to slow the space. Okay, something is missing above my head. It was called the aft interstage. It was the section that connected the 2nd stage on your left with the 3rd stage on your right. Where's this big section at? Nobody knows. So 240,000 pounds left. It was over 2.5 minutes to get all of that on your right into Earth's orbit. 115 miles up. So we're just a little over 3 hours after launch, we're on our way to the moon. So next thing we have to do is get the lunar module out. Where was it at? The legs were all lifted up, and it was inside this big conical structure above my head, exposing the top of the lunar module. The Apollo spacecraft would go out, turn around, come back. It had a docking probe. The astronaut would push the button and literally the keys of life. Never used Apollo 14. Big difference. So who built this thing? North American Rockwell in Downey, California, just east of Los Angeles. Today, that factory site is a parking lot for a shopping center. So the Apollo spacecraft is 2 sections. The front part on your right, just like a big silver gumdrop, was probably the last 3 moon landings. They were up there for 12 days. So, you know, living room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom. The section in the back, the cylinder, they're not connected, you can't go in between the 2, what's called the service module. So there you see the big engine bell that got the spacecraft into lunar orbit, Gene Cernan. And when he comes out here to the Space Center, he says, do not introduce me as the last man to walk on the moon. He says, introduce me.
If you're thirsty, please come out.
Look at it.